dirt road off a 2-lane past a shot-up county sign. Squeaking of a backyard screen door letting you know that it's
The Putnam Personalities podcast exists to highlight the good, the positive, and the inspirational in our community. This episode is not an endorsement of any political or religious ideology. This podcast is a simple interview to get to know our friends, neighbors, leaders, and colleagues on a more personal level. Sit back, grab some sweet tea, and enjoy today's interview.
like home to me.
Well, I am excited to have Mr. Hayden George with me today on the podcast, the Putnam Personalities podcast. And before I get started, man, you've got ADHD, don't you?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So
I don't take meds for it or anything, but I like to focus on too many things at once.
Oh yeah, I know. I've known you for too long.
Oh yeah.
I first met you at QI Roberts a few years ago when we were allowed to have a Christian club in there.
Yeah,
we don't have one anymore, but we had one, and we called it Pastor's Lunch. And you'd come, and the thing I remember about you is you'd come for about half of them, and then you'd get like, I'll be back, and then you leave. You're gone. And sometimes you'd show up in the middle at the end, but you were pretty consistent though, and I do appreciate that. How old are you now, Hayden?
17.
17. And right now you play on the Interlochen Rams football team?
Yes, sir. Right now I'm playing left guard for Interlochen Rams, starting left guard in my senior year. That'll be the last time you see me in a schoolhouse setting, but tonight I'm getting ready for tonight's game and everything.
Yep. So. Tonight we play Keystone. Now next week this will air. I think next week we're playing
Central Brooksville, whoever that is.
And interesting is that's where I'm from. I used to actually literally work right around the corner from the high school there. So, and even weirder than that is, and many people, you might be the first to even know this. I don't know if my wife even knows this, but right across the street from the football field, there's a little tiny church. And one day our company I was working for was putting air conditioning in that church. And I was walking across the stage, the platform, and I happened to stop right behind the pulpit, and I was like, it'd be kind of interesting to do this one day. And literally, that's kind of like where I kind of got that feeling of, I wonder if this is something that God would have for me. Mm-hmm. So that was right there across from the football field of Brooksville High, believe it or not. So just thought I'd share that with you.
That's pretty cool.
Little tidbit there.
You get to see some of your old friends, I guess.
I don't have a lot of friends out there. I lived and worked near there, but our church was farther south. So, But yeah. Anyway, well, hey, I'm glad to have you on here. In fact, you called me and said, hey, I want to come on the podcast. I said, all right. I said, what are we going to talk about? You said, I don't know. And so we're just going to wing this one, right?
Yep.
Now, I've got actually some good things to ask you. So, Alrighty. First of all, where were you born at?
So, I was born here in Florida, obviously. Uh-huh. I think it was Gainesville. But,
okay.
Honestly, don't remember.
Well,
I didn't pay attention.
Your mom and dad didn't tell you? No, you weren't paying attention to your word?
I wouldn't pay attention.
It's ADHD, bro.
Yeah, right? No, I'm pretty sure it was Gainesville. The hospital where me and my sister were both born at is now non-existent. But as far as I know, it's Gainesville, but I could be very wrong. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. I didn't pay attention too much. But
that's all right. So you're in high school now at Interlochen, but that's not where you started out. Tell me about your schools you went to in the area.
So, starting out elementary school, I was at James A. Long over in Palaca. I went there, actually, no, I didn't start there. I started at Peniel, and I went there till second grade. And then from second grade to fifth, I was at James A. Long. And then I went to CeeLo, obviously, for sixth grade. Mm-hmm. And then seventh and eighth was out at QI Roberts. And then ninth to now, I've been at Interlochen High School.
Did you go to Pastor's Lunch at CeeLo?
I don't know if it was a thing whenever I was there.
Okay, because I don't remember having you. I mean, I knew
I just didn't know about it.
Didn't know about it. That's cool. That's cool. So any teachers in the community that you've had over the years that you give a shout out to, like they've really influenced you?
Absolutely. So some of the most recent ones, Miss Madison Saprell, she is my ag teacher. She has been the one who has really shown me everything that there is to do in the ag industry, and has really made me want to strive to pursue education through that.
Okay.
Trying to get, or what I want to end up doing with it is large animal vet med, but just without Miss April, she has gone above and beyond to give me all the opportunities, all the everything. And it's not she's just singling me out. She's truly doing it for every single one of her kids. She loves every kid that she has, and she just wants to see everybody succeed. And
Awesome.
I really thank her for investing as much time and everything else that she has in me in the 2 years that she has had me. And then the other teacher, who I credit a lot of my hard work and drive to, is my welding teacher, Tad Deloach. From my freshman year all the way till now, he has been on my chops trying to make sure that I'm successful and everything else. And if it wasn't for him being on my back the way he has been in welding, I wouldn't be sitting with all 3 certifications before I hit my senior year. So now in my senior year, I'm just going to be helping him out with everything. And again, like I said, I give a huge amount of thanks to him for everything that he's done for me. And then we're going for a little bit of a throwback here.
Yeah.
All the way back to 5th grade. My 5th grade teacher, Miss Deanna Blitch, she was just one who always wanted to see me succeed. Any time that I see her in public, hey, how you doing? I've been keeping up with you on Facebook. Da, 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 da. I'm really proud of you. Everything else, like she's always one to want to see the best in somebody and want to see them succeed. And then going back a little bit further, was Miss Richardson, my 3rd grade teacher. She always invested in everybody. A lot of the people who I do give a lot of the credit to for making me into the young man that I am today are some of those teachers who took the time to invest in each one of her or his individual students, who didn't just see the classroom as, okay, I got to teach. No, there's a saying my dad likes to say a lot of times, because he's a teacher out at Interlochen and everything else,
Right.
is if the only thing that I taught my students was love, then I would have been a successful teacher. But if I didn't teach them that, I would have been a failure. And I feel like that is very true. Each one of my teachers has shown it in his or her own way, but they definitely strive to love each and every one of their kids, and I just give huge, massive thanks to all of those.
Gotcha. Very cool. So what are you planning on? So you're graduating in May, and after graduation, right now you're actually doing dual enrollment? No?
Yes, sir.
Yeah? Okay.
Dual enrollment through Santa Fe.
Okay.
So the reason I picked Santa Fe over St. John's River State is because Santa Fe has an actual transfer track out to the University of Florida, where all my classes can be set up for what I want my major to be, all the way out to UF, which will be animal sciences. So they can start, instead of just giving me all the core classes I need for my 60 credits to graduate my AA, they can actually start incorporating some of the elective classes, because if I'm going into that animal sciences, I've already decided on that and everything else. They're like, okay, well, since you're on this transfer track, we'll start giving you a few of the electives from the animal sciences program. So that is where I'm going to eventually end up, is University of Florida, God willing. But if he has another plan, because there is a couple colleges who are peaking.
I heard FAMU.
They are in the cards as well.
Okay.
I talked to their assistant O-line coach at a FSU football camp, and I actually caught his eye, because I just walked past him and I said, "Thank you for being here, coach." And as I'm walking away, he said, "Hey, Biggin, come back here." And I was like, all right. I went back over to him and talked to him for a little bit and everything else. And ever since, I've been trying to see if I can get a foothold in the door there, because, I mean, if I can, it's FAMU, Florida Agricultural Mechanics University.
Exactly.
So There's also another college up north. They have what I want to go for, and they've piqued interest in me for football and everything else. So really, it's just one, if I get any offers for football, and if that college has what I want to go for, then I'm going to go there. But if that doesn't pan out, if I don't get any offers for football, then I will end up at the University of Florida.
What if you get an offer from them?
Praise God, I guess. Definitely would be a huge thing. But I'm a little bit undersized compared to them big boys.
Undersized? How much you weigh, bro?
Right now, I'm sitting at 6'4", 300. And their starting O-line right now, I think their smallest guy.
So I'm 6'1", 305, bro. So we're almost, wow. You're a big guy.
So what's funny, though, is like position that I play, their starting guy there, I'm pretty sure is like 6'4", like 320.
I think the most uncomfortable position you played was center. You didn't like that, did you?
It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just I couldn't find my groove. I couldn't find it in time to be successful.
Well, there was also, you had I think if I'm not mistaken, because I kind of laughed a few times because you're tall.
Mm-hmm.
And you launched that thing, you had a short quarterback too. And that the combination was kind of rough.
Well, and it's all about fundamentals because you can have, like, there's a guy up at Providence. I don't know his name, but this kid is like 6'6", 6'7", and he plays center. And I'm
really?
like, excuse me, what? It's really all about your technique whenever it comes down to playing that position. And here in the past year, because last year I ended up breaking my wrist and everything else, so I went out in like the 6th game or something like that. But it's really all about technique. And this year I've had to obviously try and figure some things out, and I've got it pretty much down packed now. And I actually had to fill in last week's game. Because one of my the center, Tristan Smith, decided to stick up for the quarterback, which I'm not saying he's wrong for, but maybe could have handled it a little bit better. But I probably would have done the same thing in all honesty, but it is what it is. So definitely have been able to get back into the groove of figuring out my correct snapping abilities and everything else. And really, according to my football coach, I'm literally the most versatile lineman that he's got. He told me, he's like, dude, I don't want to put you in on defense because be my luck, someone gets hurt on offense, and then you're going to be even more tired, and then I got to put you somewhere else and everything else. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right, Coach. But
now, how much do you know about Coach? Do you know a lot about his past and history and stuff?
So besides his football and everything else,
just football, but you know he used to play arena football.
Mm-hmm.
You know what arena? Have you watched arena football?
Mm-mm, I have not. I knew that he went to Valdosta State, and then I think he said, I know he went to the Bengals.
Well, if you watched the last interview I did, it was with him, or two interviews ago. And one thing about arena football is when you play arena football, you actually play both offense and defense. You play both positions. So he kind of knows both. So it's kind of cool that he would be willing to put you in either one of those because he knows how to play that. So.
And
cool.
I do play a little bit of defense here and there, but like I said, they just want to keep me as fresh as possible for offense, and they don't want to risk, me getting on the bottom of a pile and catching a cleat to the rib and breaking a rib or blowing out my knee or something like that. Like they just don't want to put me in more risk than what is absolutely necessary. And I'm not the greatest whenever it comes to defense because I think about it too much. But whenever I just don't think and just do, wise words of Maverick, Top Gun, whenever I just don't think and just do, I seem to perform okay. So it's really just a 50-50 on that.
I like how you throw out a movie line. Mm-hmm. Like the only thing I can do is like bitty bitty bitty. That's all, folks. Like I don't know more than that. So I like watching movies, but I don't ever pick up the lines like some people do. Some people can throw movie lines all day, but I like that. That was pretty cool. Hey, so thinking about football now, we're not just to make sure we don't call names, we don't mention specifics, but I do want to throw something out at you. So I'll start with this first of all. So a couple years ago, there was a Chick-fil-A out here at Queens, right down the street, and I remember pulling up at Queens to get some food, and a smaller Hayden comes running up, and he's like, "Hey, Pastor!" And I hadn't seen you in a while, and you were excited because at camp that summer, you had decided to follow Christ. That you want to be a Christian. You want to make it real. You want to make it real in your life. So I'm going to start the question off with that scenario. First of all, being a Christian doesn't mean we're perfect.
Absolutely not.
You still have some flaws.
Absolutely.
Can we share them public? No. Don't do that.
Let's not go that far. No.
But there are struggles, isn't there?
Oh yeah. Every day. Especially going to a public school, and I'm not saying that a private school is any better.
Oh, we're gonna get to that. We're getting to that. Don't get there yet. Don't go too far.
Sorry, not too far.
Not too far. Go ahead.
There's definitely some day-to-day struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Just with anymore, you almost see it as like a minority group, if you will. There's just not too many Christians, and there is a lot of Christians, but they're just not open to step out about their faith. And that was something that was addressed this past Wednesday night in my youth group, is that well, maybe some people are just scared to step out in their faith because what are they going to do? Get judged? Well, the only true judgment that ever matters is the one that will happen on Judgment Day. And then one, if you're scared to step out and tell somebody in your friend group or something else like that, you need to take a step. And this was the whole entire topic of conversation, is that if you were to step out and talk about it, well, what if they say you're a Christian? Like questioning, like they didn't know. Well, one, that leads you to need to ask the question about yourself. Take a step back, self-evaluation. Why did he say that? Why does he not think that I'm different? Why does fill in the blank? And then after that, it needs to be, how do I fix my life to be set apart? God or Jesus called us to be different, to be set apart from the world, be in the world, not of the world. And then whenever it comes down to just simply asking one of your friends to church, or maybe there's something that he's struggling with or something else, just a subtle plant of the seed. Just I know God's got this. I know God will have it. There's a fellow who came into where I work the other day. I don't remember this guy's name, but he just came in, and he's a homeless guy and everything else. Me and him had a conversation. I was like, buddy, the real and honest truth is that God has all the answers. I said, there's no reason that I should be where I'm standing today. There's no reason where you should be standing where you are today. There's no reason where whoever else should be standing where they are today, except for God. I said, and a lot of people tend to, once they get in a good position, take a step back from God, which you can't do. You've always got to stay with Him. You've got to keep something of Him in your life.
Right.
You have to make Him priority over your life. And it just with everything that's around today, I definitely can say that it's difficult. There's definitely some things that make you want to stray away, like your music genres and everything else. Well, some people say, well, I just don't have time. Well, me being that I live in Palaca and I can go to school in Interlochen, it's 25 minutes that I can either choose to listen to secular music, or I can choose to listen to Christian rap or a Christian podcast, or my favorite is listening to a clip from Stephen Furtick's messages and everything else. And he's just one of the true pastors that I can relate a lot to, or not so much relate to, but I understand him a lot better. And so I'll just throw on one of his things and listen to it on the way to school. Like, there's so much smaller things that can help you stay close with God that a lot of people just don't take advantage of. Me being busy and everything else, I mean, that's one of the only ways that I can truly get into it, because once I get home, I eat, shower, and go to bed. I'm dead.
Right. Oh yeah.
So it's definitely difficult.
So I say this probably once every podcast for a reason, but my podcast is not meant to be political, and it's not meant to be religious. But with that being said, each individual I'm speaking to, if that's part of their life, that's why it gets brought up. So you are a Christian, I know that, so that's why this gets brought up. I really struggled last week. You know, I'm the chaplain of the team. I'm sitting on the ball field. I'm with all you guys out there, and we're playing, again, we're not naming names, but we're playing a Christian school. And the words that I heard coming out of those players' mouths, some of the actions that I've seen from some of their players that would consider themselves a Christian school really bothered me. But what bothered me the most was having kids. Again, I'm not singling out public school kids, we understand that. But there's a stereotype. Yep. So here we are. I got public school kids on the line with me, and I'm listening to them. I'm just helping with water. I'm there to, hey, this guy's injured. You need to stretch. I'm just there to help. I'm not a coach, but I'm on the sideline, and then I hear our kids saying, man, I thought this was a Christian school. Did you hear what they were saying? Did you see what they were doing? And man, that just I wanted to cry on the way home last week because I was really frustrated. Like here, I feel like as a Christian, I felt like the name of Christ was being dragged through the mud. So tonight, we feed the football team every Friday, and that's actually going to be our thought tonight. Like, it's not the label. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know when I was a kid, I grew up very poor. We'd go to the food pantry and we'd get cans with no labels on them. We had to guess what was in that can for supper that night. My mom would open up, and a lot of times it was, oh, it's French onion soup again. I don't know why the French onion soup always lost the labels. But I'll tell you, though, but we'd always look at those labels wondering what was in that can to get ready to eat. And the problem is sometimes people take the label Christian and they want to slap it on everything. They want it to get votes. They're going to use it to get, I'm a Christian business, so I'm going to have this guy mow my yard. But the thing is, some people use that and abuse that. And just because somebody takes that label as Christian doesn't necessarily mean they're a Christian. Yeah. Being a Christian is what's actually going on in your heart, not what's on the outside. True character is what you do when no one's looking. Yeah. Your reputation is what people see. But eventually your character is going to come through your reputation, and your reputation will show through. But I say all that because that's a struggle I had last week at the football game, to watch a Christian school act and behave the way they did. You heard that same conversation. What did any of your teammates say something about it?
So I knew going into that game, there's always the stereotype, oh, Christian school is supposed to be Christian, da 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 da. You can guarantee that 95% of the time they're going to be just as bad, if not worse, than a public school. Back my freshman year, same thing happened. I thought this team was a Christian school. Anymore, the Christian school label has been changed to, these are some of the meanest, most dirtiest players that you can play against.
Why is that, though?
And it's just because everybody always thinks, oh, they're a Christian school. They're not going to dog us or everything else, so they're not preparing themselves to play a school that might be highly racist, or a school that might be very, like a low blow. Like if someone has recently passed in your community, like they don't expect them to take a shot at that. So whenever you go into play a Christian team, they know that you're underestimating them mentally and physically. And that's just, it's really unfortunate that it is that way. But kind of going on to something that you were saying, I don't exactly remember what it was you were saying, but
was it the bitty that's all, folks?
No,
just kidding.
There was a passage of scripture I was reading this week. It was Matthew 6. And it was basically, the Lord's Supper is in, or not the Lord's Supper, good Lord, the Lord's Prayer is in that chapter of scripture and everything else. And I was kind of reading through it, and I was like, this whole chapter is about how the Pharisees and Sadducees and everything else were like, oh, let me go donate to the poor, but let me do it on a street corner and gloat about it. Mm-hmm. Or let me pray and do the, oh God, who is without me there, and everything else, and on and on and on. They do it for like a public fame. Right. It's severe spiritual hypocrisy. And that is also a very, very killing factor as to why a lot of people turn away from Christianity, why a lot of people are turning away from the church, why a lot of people are putting labels on the church, and on Christian teams and on Christian schools and everything else. Just people who say that they are Christian, and they do the whole woe is me, look at what I'm doing here, and then they judge down on people. Like they'll say, oh wow, you're drinking, you're having a sip of whatever here and there, and then they'll turn around and go do the same exact thing. And it also said later on in that scripture, it was like prayer is supposed to be done in private. Lock yourself away in a room and talk with your heavenly Father. And there was some other stuff in there, but that's just something that I really kind of picked up on, trying to put on top of what you were saying. It's really a shame that the labeling and everything else is coming around today. But on top of it all, it's spiritual hypocrisy.
There's a thing that I try to think through that this week, and there's a lot of things that I thought about. One is I went to a Christian school, and the Christian school I went to, we had a drug problem at one time in our Christian school. I know there was kids in my class that were doing things they shouldn't be doing, and I can get on more things. We won't talk about that today, but because it's supposed to be a more positive outlook. But I just want to say this: that in today's culture, a lot of Christian schools get what they call they get vouchers. And because they do, a lot of public school or a lot of Christian schools, they try to build teams and stuff, and they're gonna go shopping for players, and those players can come to a Christian school with vouchers. Doesn't mean they're a Christian. There's also the situation where we had a drug problem in our school because these kids were kicked out of a public school, and their parents tried to give them some reform, so they sent them to a Christian school, hoping the Christian school would reform them. But all that to say, again, Christianity is not about a label. It's not about going to a school. It's like sitting in a garage and saying I'm a car.
It's the same concept. It's the same concept as saying like, oh, I got baptized, I'm a Christian.
Right.
No.
Right.
It's
exactly.
It's the same exact concept of saying, oh, I went to church.
Right.
Back in August 2nd of 1994.
Right.
I'm a Christian. No.
Right. And that goes back like I said, like sitting in a preacher of the past said, sitting in a garage doesn't make you a car. Mm-hmm. Just because a kid goes to Christian school doesn't mean they're going to have the character of what Christ would have if he played on a football team. So
and there's a lot of times too you see in your Christian schools is there's always going to be at least one Christian school in a bigger city, and a lot of people will send their kids to those Christian schools to try and keep them out of gang violence, drug abuse. Just falling in with the wrong crowds, and as much as you try and get them out of that setting, they're going to create their own setting within the school. So it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, because it all boils back down to the heart. It's what's in your heart. So knowing you all these years, you have a good family. Mm-hmm. Your parents have raised you in a Christian family, but for a kid to be in a public school that's not known as a religious environment, obviously. I feel like you've done a good job. I want to commend you for that. I'm not saying you're perfect, obviously, and you're not saying that either. But we've had those conversations before. But the fact is you've tried to do your best to try to overcome the stereotype and to live in a way that pleases, in your mind, the Lord. Am I right?
And there's one thing, too, that going to the stereotype thing is a lot of people will see a Christian and they'll be like, are you supposed to be perfect?
Right.
Who's
exactly.
perfect?
Right.
Who is perfect in anywhere?
Right.
Like, the only perfect person is God.
Right.
And my uncle, he's one of the most relatable Christians I know, just because, you can get kind of foul, but at the same time, the man has such a strong Christian faith and knowledge and everything else that it's just like, he is the epitome of a diamond in the dirt. Yeah, rough around the edges, everything else, but he's still got the core Christian values. Like, if someone were to come up to him and be like, who's this Jesus man? He could sit there and minister to him. But, and I think that's one thing that is often misinterpreted is, yes, Jesus changes your life radically, but he doesn't go, it's gone. Like, if you were, I don't know, I'm going to just use this analogy because we were just talking about it. If you were a drug abuser, you went straight to God. Okay, yeah, sure. Drug abuse might stop instantly. But that doesn't mean that the temptation isn't there. It doesn't mean that...
well, you used the term a diamond in the rough, and that's a good example because diamonds aren't formed overnight.
No, absolutely
It takes time. But I would say, though, not in disagreement, but in agreement with you, but a little thought on that is if we are Christians, we're not going to be perfect, but we are trying to become more and more like Christ. And so if we look back on our life a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there should be and better be some change because that's what it is. It's that what we call sanctification, the set apart.
And there is also too that like sometimes in some churches you see it as though some people try to portray themselves as perfect. And I can say from back whenever I wasn't saved, that was one of the most intimidating factors as to why I didn't go and step out and talk to somebody whenever I was at my church or something like that. Just because it's like, they're going to judge me for what I've done, And I mean, I know that now that everybody ain't perfect. Everybody got it passed.
Jesus called it a whited sepulcher. A sepulcher is where they put dead bodies. They go outside and they'd paint it, look it all nice and neat, but inside it's still full of dead man's bones. And so let me ask you a couple quick questions. So what's the last book you read other than the Bible? You read? Are you a reader? Not a reader?
Nope.
Haven't read any?
Last book I read is my college class's ENC 1101 book.
Okay.
So that's about the last book I read in the past year.
All right. So that's one quick question. Here's another quick question. So if I took your phone right now, you have iPhone?
No.
What do you have?
Android.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm just kidding. Spotify?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's on your Spotify list? Top 5.
Top 5. Right now we're sitting at a mix of country music. So your newer guys like your Zach Bryan, your Luke Combs, your Zach Top, and then you've got a whole lot of Randy Travis.
Is your personal one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
You've got a whole lot of Randy Travis. You've got a little bit of Alan Jackson in there.
See, that's the stuff I prefer, the 90s. I'm not much of the new stuff.
I'd like every now and again, I'll just get in the zone where it's like 2-3 months straight 90s country, and I'm just like, yep. Yeah. And then one of my favorite Christian bands is For King and Country. They'll be on there. I'll listen to their For King and Country mix a lot because just their style of music it's unique. It doesn't fall under the same stereotype as, it's just
I've
Christian
never seen
music.
so many drums on a stage.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw them live a few years ago, and it was like they were the most energetic, all over the place.
I've been to 3 live shows, I think, for them.
Interesting enough, you know who their sister is?
Yes and no.
It's my era, but Rebecca St. James.
So
when I in the 90s, and so I saw her in concert out in Los Angeles, and the truth is, I didn't know she had brothers, and then later on I found out, and so I met her brothers when they were. Trying to think who her fiddle. She had a fiddle player too. Shoot, who was he?
It was either Luke or Joel.
No, she had a fiddle player that was also the bodyguard for, and I can't remember. But anyway, this guy was like buff, and he was up there like doing fiddle, and then found out he was actually a bodyguard for somebody famous. It was pretty interesting. I can't remember now what she told me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, now her brothers travel, and they're the famous ones.
Yeah,
but
their new movie is what made all the things connect. Like,
which is
it's
I have not seen that one.
Called Unsung Hero.
Okay, I've heard of it, but I'm not seen it. Okay,
it's about them coming from Australia, coming here, and all the struggles and everything else, and just how everybody blossomed. And it ends off the movie with Rebecca St. James singing and everything else and all that, and Joel and Luke are running sound, or they're doing something for her, and then some of her other brothers are doing all this and everything else, and then it goes to a live show that I think it was either she did or they did, and all of them are there. It's like a family-run business.
Now you just gave away the whole movie.
Right?
I'm done. I don't have to watch it now.
Nah, it's so.
But you've seen it, obviously.
Yeah,
cool.
The description I just gave you is so underrated compared to the movie. It's amazing.
So that's 3. What's 4?
4. We're sitting at there's a Christian rapper. He goes by KB. He has a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, it's more of like a locked in type playlist. I'll listen to his mix. There'll be like KB, Andy Manito, I think is how you say his last name. There'll be so many more others. And then 5 is probably sitting at a Christian rapper by the name of Gio. He does like a lot of, I don't want to say it's like a slow rap, but it's a slow rap, if that makes any sense. It's like it's going back more to your hip hop instead of your rap like type style. Like it's kind of like a early 2000s type hip hop sound, and it's very humanistic, I guess you could say, because the titles of his songs are like, there's one that's like Burn It Up, or there's another one where it's like Mess Up or something like that. Like there was a new one I listened to this morning. There's just so many of them that he's just relatable on all different kinds of
So
songs.
humanistic in
In a Christian way.
Humanistic would be more like, if it feels good, do it. But I know what you're saying, though. Like more of a
it's
relatable
more,
context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's cool. And then let's see. I wanted to ask you one other question. I can't remember what it was now.
Darn.
Well, at the end of every interview, I always give whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity to ask me a question too. Anything you want to ask me?
So let me see. What made you choose Interlochen as your high school to commit to?
Okay, that's a cool question. I like that. Interesting enough, when I was a youth director at another church in Hudson, our high school was right around the corner, and I was young. I worked full time. Never really had an opportunity to minister. The only time I actually been to that high school, which is just such a weird story, but one of the kids in our church was in the ROTC program, and they had to have the guns. And one day we had to bring the guns to the school. And the most interesting thing is, I literally walked on campus, got out of my car like carrying a rifle, and nobody said a word to me. I'm like, this is like 2010. This isn't like 50 years ago, right? So anyway, when I came here, I just always wanted to be a part of like working with a football team, getting to do that stuff, because as a youth director, I never had those opportunities. And so we moved here. My kids were homeschooled. My kids got involved with Babe Ruth. They got involved with Upward. And through that, I learned that they had like the pastor's lunches. And so I just jumped in. I got to meet people like, for his name, Eddie. And I almost said Andy, but Nathan Edens. Got to meet, everybody gets Andy. It's not Ashton, it's Andy. It's not Nathan, it's Andy. Everybody says Andy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got involved with that. And then, so I was at Palaca High School. Then then I had a chance, finally one of them said, hey, I wasn't really part of the group, but I went to all of them. And they said, well, you want to do a lesson next week? I'm like, sure. So we're in the Panthers Den. I did one there. That same week I had CeeLo, did pastor's lunch there. We had QI Roberts. We had Jenkins Middle. So I did all those schools. And then the guy that was kind of overseeing everything, he stepped down and moved away. He got married, moved away. And he asked me to kind of just, if I wanted to, he gave me like the Facebook page. I forgot about that. I guess I should update that. But he gave me the Facebook page, and then some of the other guys dropped out too. So it was just me. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do? I don't want to just lose this opportunity. I can't do all the schools. Yeah. So I finally said, all right, I'll do Jenkins, I'll do QI, and we'll do pastor's lunch. And I was already involved with Interlochen Middle, which would have been
Price. Yeah,
Price Middle School, CH Price. And I was working at Pastor Chris at Christian Fellowship of Students. My daughter started to go to school at Interlochen. And so, anyway, with all that being said, I was kind of in all the schools. And I finally said, look, this is way too much. So I talked to the guys that were there, and I said, why don't you do a school? We each have our own school. We get to know the kids better and, have more of a better relationship that way. So I was doing, I dropped all the schools I had. I just stuck to QI Roberts. I did that for the 1 year. And then I still did CH Price and still did Interlochen High School. But through that, a football team, Pastor Chris, I started helping feed the football team, our church. And that was the other thing. My very first year here, I wanted to be involved. And I said, hey, how can we help the football team? And I was thinking about doing like packed lunches. And they're like, well, there's already a church doing something for the team that way. So instead of trying to create something else, I said, well, let me just be a part of that. And so I started helping Brother Chris. And then he asked me if I would, want to teach one time. And the next thing I know, next year he put me in a rotation. So I didn't choose a school. It chose me. No, I'm just kidding. But that's how I kind of got involved with that. Just being in the community. I had at the time I had Lance and Logan Hastings. They were in our church at the time. They were both players for the team. And so I actually wrote a letter.
A minute ago.
Do you remember them?
Night.
Do you know them?
I don't remember them off rip, but I recognize the names.
They have a sister Sierra, but
I recognize the names from going back into the Max Prep stats. And
it's old. So I wrote a letter one time for the football team. They had a day where they weren't getting a meal, and they were just taking a bus trip out. And so we just packed lunches for them, put a letter in there, food, Gatorades and stuff, and we sent it with the team like as a go-away thing. Mm. That was like my first thing for the team. But then through 2020, everything kind of shut down. But I just kind of stuck with it and tried to just be I just try to fill the gap as a coach. What's his name? I wrote it down last night. It's the black gentleman with the little beard. Is he defense? He's a JV coach, and he was there last night at the game.
The white fella?
No, it's a black fellow with a little beard. A bald
Holloway?
head.
Coach Holloway?
Holloway, yes. Holloway last night said, I'm going to use this for devotional. He's like, number 5, way to fill the gap. And I love that. I was like, number 5, way to fill the gap. The Bible talks about we're looking for a man to fill the gap. And so anyway, that's what I did. I just filled the gap. Just anywhere there was a place to be, that needed help, I just wanted to be there. And so thankfully, last year, I asked Coach, I said, all the other teams have chaplains. I said, who's the chaplain for Interlochen? He's like, well, you are. I'm like, I am? He goes, well, you've been all these years. I'm like, I didn't know that. So I was like, well, I can stand on the sideline. He's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, I didn't know that. So last year I started going to all the games, traveling, and this year that's my goal, to be at the games and get to know the thing is, I don't know a lot of the guys' names, and it bothers me because I'll see them and I'll be like, hey, how are you? And they'll say something to me. But over the years, it's been an hour lunch. That's it. Or I see them from the sidelines. I don't really get to talk to them. Yeah. This year, I really want to get to know the guys better, get to know them, get to talk to them.
Well,
so
besides me and a couple of others, you got about 15 more that you need to get to know before we graduate.
I know. That's what I'm saying, man. It's like
this class.
That's the thing. There's a lot.
Yeah, this class this year is massive. I think we have 17 or 18 graduating, and
it's scary because honestly, the size of last year's team compared to this year's team is a lot smaller. If you have that many seniors,
it's a lot smaller. But in the same, I'm fairly confident that this year we can do something. I mean, obviously, last week was not a good reflection. We just they massively underestimated that team. But I like us this year. I like us to at least be over 500.
The attitude's good this year.
Oh, yeah.
I see that a lot. Really good.
Last year was definitely a rebuilding year because the year before that was championship year, and we lost 20 seniors or something like that. And those seniors that we did lose were our core wide receiver group, our whole entire defensive front.
Right.
And so we had to train a lot of young guys. And so this year that's what we're trying to do, is try to train all the younger dudes. Because, I mean, our team, besides a lot of our starters, are junior and lower. Mm-hmm. All of our seniors, a lot of us play both ways. And if we don't, it's majority of the offense is the senior class.
Right.
But I'm also confident in the fact that we're going to leave behind a good group of guys. Now, I can't say that they're going to execute amazingly on their first year doing it on their own, because they're going to have obviously the fights amongst themselves, just like we did last year and everything else. And we've got to jump on to Coach's motto, rise as one. I mean, and whenever it comes to football, it's not one guy versus 11. It's 11 on 11. There's even numbers for a reason.
Right.
If you have your alignment and your assignment and you execute correctly, you will win ball games. And we saw that our championship year. Align, assign, and executed, and we won ball games. And so that this year is something that all of our coaches, not just Coach Gibson, has been hawking down on, is alignment, assignment, and proper execution. So we're trying to train up the younger guys to do that exact thing.
Good.
So,
but yeah, to finalize what you said, Interlochen, why I picked Interlochen, it is a choice. It's something I volunteer to do. Like I told the guys I don't mean to but I want them to realize I'm not getting paid to do this. Yeah. I have to pay to get in the game sometimes too, depending where I'm at. But it's just I do it because and I think it goes back to what we talked. It's from my heart. It's honestly, I love to do it. I really want to invest in these young men. I want to see them have good lives. I have done funerals of teenagers. I know that we're not guaranteed till tomorrow.
Nope.
There's one picture I show every year. You remember the picture, I'm sure, but every year I show that picture of a young man in Placa who died, who was on the Interlochen team, and I have a picture of the Interlochen players carrying his casket. And every year I tell those young men, like, hey, we don't know when our time is. We got to make sure we're prepared for that. So, but yeah, I want to invest in you guys. I want to see you guys do good things, and you guys are closest in my community, I guess you could say as well. But the last thing is this: I think consistency is important. I realize that a lot of young men don't have consistency in their lives. They don't have dads in the home. They don't have, or they have dads or stepdads that are in and out all the time. I just want to be some type of consistency so those kids know that, like, every year, I'm there. Like, I might be annoying. I'm a big kid sometimes. I'm goofy. I'm not cool, and I know that, but I'm there. And I think being consistent is very important. And that's what I've tried to be.
Consistency is key. I mean, the easiest analogy I can use is me. I mean, whenever freshman and sophomore year, I wasn't consistent in the weight room, and I was sitting there wondering why at 265 to 285 pounds, I was only benching 185 pounds and only squatting like 275. Well, once I got into it consistently, started eating a little bit better. I mean, I still don't eat good because 300 pounds at 17 is kind of crazy. But once I actually started being consistent in the weight room, now I've got maxes up to 265 on bench and 445 on squat and everything else. And it's consistency is what's going to form you into the person that you need to be.
Exactly.
And without consistency, you're not going to be anything. I mean, you'll starve if you only eat on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. That's my goal. Try to be consistent with the guys, trying to encourage them, and hopefully I've done a little bit of that. So I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for sticking with me all these years, being a friend. It's good to have you on here today.
Yes,
and hope God will bless your future.
We're going to try.
All right. Thanks, Hayden.
Yes.